Hello and welcome to today's Studio Armor Review, where we're going to continue our look at the Exodite Codex that I'm working on. These are the Dragonmasters and represent the Tyranid Codex. What Dragonmaster or Exodite army would be complete without the iconic Dragon Knights? The Dragon Knights are a key piece of the folklore or fluff of the Exodites. The whole concept of dinosaur riding knights is central to an Exodite army, and it really can't have a really satisfying one without that. Now, when I first tried to work on this unit, my initial attempt was with the Eldar Codex, and I thought I'd make these to represent the Howling Banshees. Again, using the hand bow to represent. See if I can get that to focus. Using the hand bow to represent the shuriken pistol, and they've got a close combat weapon sword. So made perfect sense. 4-up armor, that's pretty decent mid-range armor. But when I actually put them on the 25mm bases, they just seemed kind of unbalanced. They didn't fit right, didn't look right. Just something was not right about them. And the oddball thing is, some of the rules made sense. You know, the whole concept of you can't overwatch against Banshees because they have that mask. Well, having a dragon like this running you down is going to give you the same fear that'll probably give you a pause you want to overwatch. But even as I tried to play him, the satisfaction really wasn't there for some reason. So when I did find the Tyranid Codex and this whole synapse concept and Dragonmaster merging so well, I stumbled on the fact that the Tyranid Prime and the Tyranid Warriors match. In fact, I was really surprised to look at the stats of this Tyranid Prime compared to Tyranid Warrior, and it's really just a more capable, more experienced, if you will, a veteran Tyranid Warrior. And the whole idea that he actually increases the weapon skill of the unit of Tyranid Warriors he's with just made sense. He's inspiring their abilities through example. So Dragonmaster Warlord it was. And the actual model I have in the center here was the model I used to represent the Dragonmaster Warlord right now. The others are just regular Dragonmasters. Nothing special about them. The key to this was trying to make them match the Tyranid Warrior. Now this is actually pretty easy, considering the Tyranid Warrior is about the same size. Same size base, same kind of bulky figure. And it essentially comes with two weapon options. Default, the Scything Talons and the Devourer. These are my son's Tyranids, so he's not done painting them. So I had to basically figure out how I'm going to start with those two basic weapons. So that quickly became the Dragonmaster handbow, figuring that the 18-inch range kind of sits right on the outside edge of a crossbow range. Definitely not a certain longbow range, Now, Dragonmaster, I figure, well, they're just significantly more skilled because their whole aspect of their life is around warfare, unlike some of the other Dragonmasters and House Clan units. So they're going to really be able to handle this handbow a lot better than their compatriots. So they can fire faster, Assault 3, and they get a better range out of it, much like the Shuriken Avengers have a longer ranged Shuriken Catapult. Even though that one's technologically based, I figure this is skill based. So the Scything Talons, I just made them with Dragon Sword. And the sword I use is nothing fancy, it's just the typical swords that come with the Corsair, Dark Elf Corsairs. In fact, all you need to make these is a kit of Dark Elf Corsairs and a kit or two of the Cold One Knights for the Dark Elves. And boom, you've got everything you need. In the next video, in the very next video, you will see how you can actually use the rest of those Black Arc Corsairs to fill out a whole different unit. So as we look at the options available to a Tyranid Warrior and convert those to a Dragon Knight, it actually becomes pretty easy. So Rending Claws was the hardest one to figure out, because when you look at, there's the Rending Claws upgrade, the Bone Sword upgrade, and then there's the the Lash Whip and Bone Sword upgrade. Well, Bone Sword fell into place real quick when I realized that the Lance is a perfect representation of the Lash Whip and Bone Swords. Being long, it strikes first, there's your initiative bonus, and impaling with the mass of the Knight and Mount, it's going to be an instant death, potentially weapon. So that was easily a Dragon Lance. Now, the Bone Sword then meant it had to be something, a larger weapon that could gain a benefit from the fact you're using it from a mounted steed. And so I decided to go with the Dragon Glaive, which is kind of like the Exodite Glaive. In the next video, you'll actually see an example of a Dragon Glaive and how it's used in a different unit. I don't currently have a model with that. These are only 5 models I've got, but I do have another set I'm building, and one of them will definitely have the Dragon Glaive. You'll just kind of see it when I do that update video, exactly what it looks like. But that left the Rending Claws. How do you go from a sword to the glaive, and what makes it rending? What would be different? I haven't really stumbled on anything that's exactly what I need. I might try a hammer or a pick or something like that, but I haven't settled on that yet. I do know there is one Black Art Corsair weapon that might work well in that space. But what I'm settling for right now is it's a Dragon Bite. So whereas the other knights will typically use their own weapons, and the claws and stuff, the bite would potentially hurt the opponent. They don't leverage the bite as much. They don't leverage the dragon's ability. The dragon is there mostly to keep them in position, maneuver them around, and so it's not actively using its bite to really tear apart its victim. So I can use that Dragon Bite to represent an individual Dragon Knight's fighting style, where he does leverage the mouth of his beast more often than just his sword or what have you. Okay, so that's how that fit up pretty good. Now the next piece was that there were 2 heavy weapon options that a Dragon Knight can take. I'm sorry, Tyranid Warrior can take, and they're the Barbed Strangler and Heavy Venom Cannon, the Venom Cannon. Now it makes sense. Again, looking at the Exodite perspective, the Venom Cannon just translates really, really well. So I created, it's more of a Drake Venom projector. So it's almost think of a grenade launcher. It fires, up to 36 inches. I think it is, 36. Fires a canister or a flask, an Eldar flask of this condensed gas, poison gas, and when it impacts, it explodes, and so you get your large blast that way. Now, the other one was a little bit harder to figure out, but it's the Barbed Strangler was a little bit more difficult. I didn't want to really leverage for the Dragon Knight weapon this whole idea of plants entangling the opponent. I didn't want to do that. So I decided to essentially leverage the Dragon Breath concept again, but look more toward the kind of a heat angle. Barbed Stranglers have pinning, and so if you're hit with a searing blast of steam or hot, superheated air, you'll get knocked down. You'll get pinned basically, and it will be painful. So there's a lot of power in that. So I decided that I would make that weapon a pyroclastic projector. So it essentially fires a projectile that, when it lands, it explodes and releases this intense searing gas, kind of like a pyroclastic flow coming off a volcano. So it may not be the best approach. It works for kind of what I'm imagining. I'd love to hear your guys' ideas of what else I could make the Barbed Strangler into from a perspective of a Dragon Knight's heavy weapon. So the last piece of this whole Tyranid Warrior interpretation goes with the upgrades. There's toxin sacs, flesh hooks, and adrenal glands. And really, that once I really saw the Dark Eldar Codex as a potential. The toxin sacs, herbal poisons, just like the Dark Eldar, poison everything, right? So they'll either put poison on their claws, or they'll poison their weapons, right? Well, in here it's actually poison on their claws because they were dealing, or not just claws, but the sword, because we're dealing with toxin sacs in a close combat specific area. The adrenal glands, well, herbal stimulants, just like the quote combat drugs that the Dark Eldar use. My independent clans use herbal stimulants. It makes sense that they feed their dragon mounts as well as feed themselves these stimulants to increase their performance. And so, what you end up with is this last entry, the flesh hooks, which were kind of a little difficult to figure out until I really read the flesh hook entry, and it acts kind of like a grenade. Now, I didn't want to use a grenade. I kind of understood what they were trying to do with the flesh hooks. I realized, in the Orient, there were quite a few weapons variations on the whole chain and something, right? There was chain and blade, chain and ball, chain and hook. So that's what I decided to do, is make the flesh hooks a chain and hook weapon. Now, the chain and hook weapon actually is something that's in the Dark Eldar, I believe the witch kit. So I'm going to try to use that, just to give one of them that, just, again, for looks. I'm not trying to make these interchangeable or swappable weapons, because I'm just going for looks here. I do intend to have a nice Tyranid, I did it again, Dragonmaster Dragon Knight army, where 20 or so of these Dragon Knights leading swarms of lesser dinosaurs. I think it'd be kind of fun. May be effective, may not. We'll see. So that's how I'm going to take that approach. Now I want to kind of cover it. I want to transition slightly to talk about another unit very, very closely related to the Dragon Knights, Tyranid Warriors, but I want to take a step back and explain the fluff on the Dragon Warriors really quick, because that'll help you see the connection with the next model set or unit. So the Dragon Knights are essentially Exodites that have learned to connect psychically with, in this case, a dragon mount, their dinosaur mount. Now, not everyone that does this can do this. So these are individuals within a clan that have this ability, and they're essentially born into the saddle because they have that ability. Oops. Not everybody is born with this ability, so when they do gather together, these are a subset of the clan that band together and train each other to be effective and take on this role of the Dragon Knight. See, and it said that the ferocity of the Dragon Knight's defense of their lands and herds is matched only by the fury of the dragons upon which they ride. The Dragon Knights came into being way back when the native dragons were first tamed. The Dragon Knight's bond with his dragon is very deep, so much so that the aggressive temperament of the dragon actually begins to bleed into the personality of the Dragon Knight himself. Now, that results in Dragon Knights staging ritual battles with Dragon Knights from other clans. But over the years, those little rivalries and battles have actually fostered some clan rivalries that get intense enough that they actually have to be mediated by the respective clan nobles. So, there is a downside to having that close link. But regardless of which clan they belong to, every Dragon Master, Dragon Knight, learns to ride as soon as they learn or realize that they've got this bond with this mount, right? And for the Exodite clans, dragons used for everything, but only some are able to actually psychically link with the beast, and that's what's happening here. These aren't being controlled like some of the other dinosaurs. These are actually almost a family member, a very close tie mentally with the mount they're on. So I realized that looking at that perspective, I'm going to have Dragon Knights living, you're going to see them wherever you've got dragons, the dynasties, raptor-type dinosaurs, throughout the forest and plains. But what about in the coastal rocky cliffs or the mountains? You're going to have a slightly different beast that these dragon warriors are actually going to be able to mount. And so that's what I actually have here. Whoops. This one I haven't glued back on. These 3 models, back these out of the way here real quick. These 3 are my Pterosaur Riders. These 3 represent those Exodites who bond with a pterosaur instead of a dragon mount, regular dragon mount. And originally I was going to make these to represent like shining spears, hence they have the lance and no other weapon. Now, I realized, again, once we got into the Tyranid Codex, I realized that how well these matched and got the Dragon Knights, that it made perfect sense since there's a Dragon Knight flying kind of creature, or sorry, a Tyranid Warrior flying kind of creature called the Tyranid Shrike. Stat line is pretty much the same as a Tyranid Warrior, same options as Tyranid Warrior. It just has 5 up armor, which makes sense. It's lighter, fewer scales, doesn't have the heavy, bulky scales, and the Dragon Rider is going to actually not be able to wear heavy armor like the Dragon Knights do. So they will actually have a lighter armor, kind of like the Guardian armor. I move these kind of out of the way so there's a little clearer view here of these. Hopefully that helped a bit. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit on these two. So I took the old metal Pterosaur Rider from the Lizard Man and basically took an Eldar jet bike pilot, cut his head off. It took a little work to follow the contour of his shoulder pad, I guess, or construct, and then put one of the helms from the actual Cold One Knights kits. There's a helm variation that completely covers the face, and I used that in its place, and it came out really, really well. Now, to get around the idea there's no hand bow, I gave the pterodons a acid spit, basically. So they shoot acid at their opponents. Now, I might decide to pop the shields off and actually put one of those hand bows on, but I haven't committed to that yet. Definitely a possibility. Again, these are not magnetized because I don't see myself using any of the other weapons options on these Shrikes. I think I want to go with Lash Whips and Bone Swords because I want to go in with high initiative close combat attacks with a jump type infantry. So I'll get the Hammer of Wrath and I'll get the first strike with a potential instant death weapon. So that's how I'll be using them. But it made sense with the similar stat line with the Dragon Knights. These are the Exodites who bonded with the Pterosaurs, lighter armor. We got a whole other set that we can use. Again, perfect match into the Codex. I was very, very happy when I came up with that interpretation. So actually now I'm actually free to use jet bikes as real jet bikes. And I'll find something better to use for the Shining Spears. Maybe it will be another Pterosaur Rider, but it's going to be a different model than these old Wormhammer Pterodons. Alright, so hope you got a feel for the most classic Exodite warrior that's been in the fluff since the beginning. The Dragon Knights, and in these cases the Dragon Riders on Pterosaurs. And hopefully these have actually given you some ideas. If they have, please comment below. Let me know what ideas they're sparking in you. Please share, like, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching and spending time with me on this. And I will see you in the next Studio Armor review. Alright, bye-bye.